I was disconnected from myself. I had a toxic relationship with my mindset. I was so convinced it would get me through everything. All I wanted to do was be accepted. We fall into victim mode, we fall into blame. But the thing is, everything around us is a reflection of what goes on within us. As soon as you don't accept that, you create a gap between where you are now and how you want it to be. No one thinks about how they actually feel. We never try anything new. We choose the familiar discomfort over unfamiliar discomfort. Our ego likes those repetitive thoughts because it keeps us where we are. How are you ever going to know what's meant for you if you don't even know who you are? I want to know who the true me is. I want to know what my passion and purpose is. It's about being authentic and true. The gold, man, in everything is in the shit that we don't want to sit through. Literally. The most valuable currency in the world is love.
I just want to start this episode with a message of gratitude for everyone who tunes in each and every week. Thank you. I feel like I owe you a massive thank you for all your love and all your support. You've allowed me to grow and connect with so many amazing people, have so many amazing conversations, which I'm then able to go and share with you. So thank you for allowing me to do this and supporting what I'm doing. Can I ask you a favor though? And I can't tell you how much this can change the course of the podcast, the guests that I get on, everything that happens around here, just by doing one simple thing. And that simple thing is pressing the subscribe button. It honestly helps so much in allowing the podcast and the guests to just get bigger and better. And I sit here and I think about the next 12 months and what that's going to look like. And a lot of that is going to be fueled off the back of your love, your support for the podcast and everything that's happening here. So from my heart, thank you. Let's keep doing it. And I can't wait to see what the next 12 months holds for this show and for us as a community. Enjoy the episode. Aaron Zarb, welcome to the podcast, bro. Thank you for jumping on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate being here. And man, you got a cool setup in here. Hey, like we've been kind of bouncing back and forth for a little bit now. And, as these things happen, man, like they align when they're meant to align. I've got big trust in that. And we've been brought together now. I think it's the first podcast I ever recorded at night. I just worked a shift at G3, this and that. And I'm like, normally you can sort of get caught in your head sometimes with that. Have I got, the energy to output for it, this and that. But I'm a big believer that, connecting with the right people and, that type of energy gets transferred. And it doesn't matter how tired you are, where you've been, that vibration will rise, as we just felt leading into this, right? Yeah.
I was tired leading into this. Yeah. As soon as we connected and got talking, did the breath work, I'm like, let's go. I'm ready to drop in, baby.
Man, energy's real, bro. And it's like, that was a little taste in it. Like, just doing that little introduction together. It's like something that Gamble and I do, like just touch on it real quick, just calling in, the universe before we get started with some breaths and just like, asking to just be led the way, because sometimes like there's messages that need to be said. We get used as vessels, man, for helping people that we don't even know. And we're in a beautiful position, you and I, with what we do, like with myself having the podcast too, like, that's a position of influence, and I really take that really seriously. Like I'm sure you do as well. And like, the amount of times that, that one person has heard something on a podcast or something that I've said and it's been a real pivotal point in their life, it's like, it makes my heart warmer. So that's why I take it serious dropping into the space like this, because I'm like, we're just speaking, we're just here, like two, human bodies here, like we've been brought together for a reason. And like, I truly believe nothing happens by accident, you don't meet anyone by accident. I'm sure you can resonate with that. And when you talk to a new person, new things come out of you. I learned something new, man, about myself every time I speak to somebody new. And for me, this is new for me, being on the other end of the mic and, being led the way. So I want you to lead the way, bro. See where it goes.
It's exciting, bro. Yeah. I think where I want to start is, I generally just want to ask you, like, how are you? Because when we ask people that we're met with, yeah, sweet, I'm all right.
I love it.
Living the dream. But like, no one generally asks, like, how are you? So Aaron, like, how are you?
Man, I love that, bro, because I resonate with that massively. It's a big thing we've spoke about on our podcast a few times, Matt and I. And it's true, bro, because it's something that just comes off the tongue without even thinking about it. Like it's a question that has lost its meaning because it's just like, it's like a greeting. Like, oh, how you going? And everyone's just like, oh, you're good. So no one thinks about how they actually feel. So there's a big thing. I try to be really aware of it. So when someone asks me, and if I'm not feeling great, I say, oh, you know what? I'm actually feeling a bit shit. Like, and I'll say that, and then they'll be like, oh, really? What? And then it then sparks a conversation.
Yeah.
It's about being authentic and true. I'm huge on that. So asking that right now, I feel fucking great. Because but I was really tired as well coming into this. I got a bit caught in thought as well on the way here. Like I said, just had a really high energy output environment in G3, put a lot out, and, you do get a lot back from that environment too, but it is more output because you're kind of guiding people through the circuits and the machines and all that. So I kind of have to recheck back in with myself. But yeah, I was feeling tired, a little bit drained on the way here. But then, connecting with you straight away, man, it raised the vibration. Feel great now. So I can honestly say I feel really, really good right now. And in life in general, what's coming through to me is just, I'm very, very at peace and content right now of where I'm at. Like I said, I might as well drop it now. My mantra I just mentioned to you before this was I'm always exactly where I'm meant to be. I say it all the time, man. I absolutely love it. And it's just reminds me that no matter how I'm feeling, it's okay. And I'm meant to be feeling this, because you shouldn't try to disregard how you feel. I think too often we try to get out of how we feel when we're not feeling great because we want to feel better. But acceptance that sometimes when you do that, you're not allowing a cycle to finish with how you feel. So when you fight against something, that's a form of control, right? And then by doing that, you create resistance. Does that make sense? So because the way you feel is the way you feel. So to deny that and it's why I used to resonate a lot with the positive self-talk and stuff. And I do it. It's good. It's positive. But when you're denying how you feel because you just won't accept how you feel right now, and I want to feel different, you're never allowing energy to pass through you properly. You create blockages within you.
It's like that toxic positivity.
It really is, bro. It really is.
You're blocking all those emotions, as you said, that are going through you. So you're never truly embracing it and working through what's actually happening.
Yeah.
You're trying to just go, oh, everything's going to be sweet. But in reality, there's a shitstorm out there.
100%.
You haven't dealt with it.
Exactly. So I've always believed that and look, I used to do this all the time, just so the listeners know, I'm not perfect and I still get caught up in this, even though I'm practicing this stuff all the time. But it's you turn it in exactly how you said it, toxic positivity. And it's but we feel certain things for a reason because there's things we need to learn through that. You know what I mean? All the growth comes through challenge and discomfort and all of that. But every time we feel uncomfortable, as humans in general, we try to get comfortable again. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we try to rush it along. Man, since my own growth, I've been on this journey for 4 years now, my personal growth journey. And the first 2 years were on and off, as you do, the typical cycle of going good for a while, then I'd fall off the rails a little bit, back on and off. And that's what I would do early on, try to deny how I was feeling. I'd feel shit and I'd be I don't want to feel like I can be positive, let's think positive and all that sort of stuff. And I would get really caught in it, but then it would feel like it was forced, and it would last for a little bit, but then I would always come back and those same things would be presented to me again, and then generally a bit worse each time. Because there's a thing I heard, I think it was Peter Crone, Peter Crone? Yep. So I actually did one of his mastermind coaching courses, man. It was unbelievable. Hey, if anyone hasn't listened to Peter Crone, he's they call him the mind architect for a reason. He's crazy, man. The way he speaks, it's just next level. And he says, the universe will keep presenting us with the things that we don't allow ourselves to heal from. So if we are presented with things like trauma, things that come up from childhood, any of our shadows that we get faced with, the more we deny them, the more we're denying the growth that is meant to come through from facing them, that's going to elevate us to the next phase of life. There's things that are waiting for us, man, to experience that we need to learn this first before we get there. But the problem is we're so impatient. We always want to get there without going through the journey, you know what I mean? So, but
I love that because especially personal development is such a big thing now.
It's massive.
There's so many seminars, events, and people go to these and look for the quick fix. So I got caught up in that.
Me too.
I'm going to go to all these events. I'm going to learn all this stuff, get the quick fix. But the reality is, what I found a lot of the times, the answers are within. You just got to have the fucking hard conversations with yourself.
Love that, man.
But it's scary, isn't it?
It really is, but it's confronting. That's why people don't like it. That's why they go to all these things and do all these things, because they want the answers from an external source. They want to just know. It's like not wanting to know the outcome. Yeah. If I go down this path, it's going to work out for me. If I leave my job, I need to know that I've got another job lined up. If I leave my relationship that I'm unhappy in, Like, I don't want to feel alone. So like, you know, I need to find someone else straight away, or, you know, or this or that. It's like crazy, man. Like there's all this stuff in between that we want to avoid, but that's where the juice is. Like that's where it all is. The answers are there. The answers sit in the shit. That's what I always see. Like that shit part, whenever you feel discomfort or you're faced with a challenge or something, like as soon as you disregard that, you're disregarding what is being presented to you to learn about the answers that you want are going to come through that. Yeah. You know, so it's like you get rewarded from sitting through the shit, and then the answers will be presented to you because you've shown trust. Okay, I'm meant to be here right now. I'm experiencing this for a reason. As you just mentioned, one of the quotes, like, you know, everything happens for me, not to me. Yep. And that's it. It's all in that. So you just trust and belief in that gives you that little bit of comfort within the discomfort to sit through it. And then by showing that trust, the universe is like, all right, sweet, here's a little bit of the answer just to show you that you're on the right path, but you still got to sit through a bit more shit before I give it all to you. That's how it works, man. I'm telling you.
We're always looking for certain, but nothing's certain in life.
Nothing's
going to die.
Exactly right, man. 100%.
You just got to embrace everything that fucking hits you and just go with the flow with things. And you mentioned before, you used to try and control everything.
Yep.
That causes more fucking havoc than anything.
Man, massive.
It drives you crazy thinking that you can control every single bit. I believe you do have control. You don't have control over every single scenario, but you have control of how you can react to the scenario.
Internal. That's it. As soon as you try to control anything outside of you, you're creating a shitstorm. Like you literally, again, Peter Crone explains this really well. He's like, whenever we can't have acceptance of what is, so whatever our current situation is, whenever we can't accept that, and we want this present moment that we're in right now, which is all we ever have. Yep. For one, like I'll go into that a bit more soon, because it's like, that's the problem. We dwell on the past, or we like worry about getting somewhere in the future. Like everything's created here. So if we're always thinking about that, like before or after this moment, when are you ever creating what's to come? Yep. Everything's created in the present. We're very rarely in the present because we're always thinking about shit, thinking about what we've got to do, thinking about who we've got to see, all the things we've got to do today. Then we're caught up in that. Something goes wrong, throws us off. We're running late. Oh shit, now I'm running late for this future thing. When are you ever here? Hey, so you wonder, how are you going to create that future you want if you're never in the present creating it? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's crazy, eh?
And the reality is everyone goes through it. I know you went through punning.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you saw my
that?
Yeah, bro. I still get caught in it all the time, but it's embracing it and accepting it, but feeling it. So I didn't even explain it. So like, it's when you can't have acceptance. So suffering is caused by ourselves. We are the only ones that cause our suffering. Yep. People have trouble accepting that because they're like, oh, this person did this to me though, and that's why I'm suffering. No, they didn't. Your perception of what they did and your story have created that it was wrong. And look, it may have not been right, and it may have been wrong, right? But just by not having acceptance of what happened, okay, I'm not saying what happened was good, but if you can't accept it, that it happened, because you can't argue that, right? However something happened, it happened. You can't argue that. So as soon as you don't accept that, you create a gap between where you are now and how you want it to be. That gap is where suffering sits. Yeah. We create that gap, so we create our own suffering. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I believe suffering is a choice.
It's 100% a choice, but it purely comes from non-acceptance. But we just get so caught up in our head that like, if we accept that, that's saying that it's good, or it was meant to happen, or it was okay that it happened, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not that at all. It's just realizing that we're creating our own resistance by just not accepting it. And then the way you do that, or me personally, is I have acceptance that a situation is shit. When I'm in a shit situation, I'm like, I accept right now, I don't like this moment. Yeah, I would love to get to the next moment, but I can't because I can only ever be here. Yep. So I'm going to accept that I'm here. I'm going to accept that it's shit, but I'm also going to reassure myself and remind myself that time doesn't stop. It continues to pass. So I'm just going to sit in the shit, feel it for what it is, be open to whatever's trying to be presented to me, because if I'm not, I'm closed-minded and I'm going to delay the shit for longer, and then it will pass. And it's just like, as anything else does. And I remind myself of past shit events that the same thing, I was caught in it, couldn't see out of it, but it's past and don't even think about it anymore. Yep. You know what I mean? So it's this cycle of awareness, acceptance, non-judgment and criticism, like for getting caught in it, and then going back into the flow and sitting in it. And then again, you're going to get caught again, accept that you got caught in it, remind yourself to have acceptance of it, don't judge yourself for getting caught in it, and come back again. Man, my life is this consistent thing of that all day. That's what's happening. So like, no matter what gets presented to me, I know that I just go through that cycle and then I'm going to be okay, no matter how shit it is, because it's going to pass.
I love that. The thing is, it's easy just to blame other people, isn't it?
But it's so much easier. We fall into victim mode. It's the easy way to go. We fall into victim mode. We fall into blame. But the thing is, everything around us is a reflection of what goes on within us. Right? This is powerful shit, eh? And I can see you nodding right now. So the relationship with us is what's most important. We never put time into the relationship with ourselves, or majority of people don't, because they either don't know how to, or they're not aware of doing it, that it's something you should do. But let me ask you a question, right? If you met somebody new and you didn't spend any time with them, how would that relationship develop? It wouldn't, would it? So who's the only person you can never get away from? Self. And if you never spend time with yourself, being present with yourself, not on your phone, not watching TV, not listening to music, without any distraction, how are you going to get to know yourself? What type of relationship is that going to be?
Exactly. It's non-existent.
Man, it's non-existent. But then we wonder why we act and react and judge and criticize and, live our lives that way and cause that type of suffering for ourselves and all of that. It's because it's a reflection of what's going on within us. When you ask somebody, I bet they're not happy about how they look. Like if you judge and criticize any part of you, that's a trait within you that then you do it to other people. And whether you're aware of it or not, or in the subconscious, it's happening. And then that's what you're going to attract. How are you ever going to attract authentic, true connections if you judge and criticize yourself? You're only going to attract people who do the same thing.
Yeah. I love that. And it's funny because a lot of us don't even spend time with ourselves. Even though if you're driving a car, you're always listening to the
That's right.
podcast. You go for a walk, you even listen to something. Even when you're with your kids, a lot of parents aren't even present with their kids. There's always something in your ears that you never actually just sit there and be present with yourself and process your own thoughts. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned before getting stuck in your own thoughts and bringing yourself back and having that little reset.
Yep.
Everyone goes through that. Everyone gets stuck in their own thoughts. So I want to ask you, how do we do that reset? How do you do that reset?
Breath's a big thing. So come back to your breath, because your breath is you. It's like what you were born with. It's what you've always got. It's what keeps you alive. Your breath is part of you. So, and it changes your physiology instant. It could just even a 2 or 3 deep breaths, being present and stopping for a second. Like I said, awareness of I'm getting caught in this. Awareness is always first. It's like the whole addiction thing. You got to be aware first you've got an addiction, right? To get out of an addiction. If you can't accept it and, own it, you're never going to work through it. So it's the same thing with little things through your day. So for me, awareness always comes first, catching myself when I'm out of alignment and being like, okay, I'm caught in this right now. I can feel my energy's off. Got to come back to me. So it's having consistent check-ins with myself. I try to do that as much as I can throughout my day, like in between roles too. Yep. So I play a lot of different roles in my life. But again, those roles aren't me. So this is going into the thought thing. Our thoughts aren't us. That's where people get caught up. They hear their thoughts in their mind, in their voice. They think it's themselves talking to themselves and it's what they need to know. It's not. Like our thoughts aren't us. Our thoughts are just our mind rattling off random shit. There's not something like Joe Dispenza says it, I think, Dr. Joe Dispenza, amazing. I'm sure you know who he is. 95% of our thoughts are repeated thoughts from the day before. Then you have 5% of new thoughts. So those are programs. Let's say you hear people talk about, we replay repeated programs in our minds that we attach to our identity and who we are. I don't I don't know, I can't think of any examples now, but it's things that we like and don't like, things that we judge and whatever, the way we respond to certain things, all of those are our habits, you know what I mean? So and there's stories that we tell ourselves that we've just repeatedly told ourselves over the years, and they've become our truths. So that's what just gets repeated in our mind, and it's what keeps us where we are. So like, I like to try to be aware of that as much as possible, always bringing myself back to it, because just that awareness of always bringing yourself back to the moment helps you to be present as much as possible and without distraction. So for me, that time, like I said, if I like to create that time with myself without distraction as much as possible. Even if it's just a few seconds sometimes, walking from a car, like where I park my car, I'm going somewhere, catching myself in a rush, especially because a lot of people can relate to this, getting a rush, especially in the morning sometimes, catching yourself in it. And in that moment, as resistant as you are to it because you're in a rush, if you walk out the door and say you feel the sun on your face and it's like, that feels nice, so you don't want to stop and feel it because you're in a rush, make yourself stop. Take a breath, feel it. That's the universe trying to be like, stop for a second. You're missing out on all of this beauty.
It's that moment of gratitude.
It's the moment of gratitude. Expressing gratitude, man. It's so much deeper than people think of just like, I'm grateful for this, grateful for that. It's like expressing it through thought, like feeling, all of that. So those are moments to self for me. Stop it. It's a big one I do. If I walk somewhere, man, I'm in the middle of the street sometimes. People look at me and think, this weirdo, right? I was stopped in the middle of High Street sometimes as the sun's hit me and I'm just like, and I like it, man, and I really feel it. I try to, and I acknowledge that there's people around me and it's a little bit of an awkward feeling, but it's an uncomfortable thing that I can step into and embrace and not miss out on a beautiful moment that's being presented to me right now because I'm caught in thought of what other people will think. So the more you can bring yourself back to that, bro, like I create that as much as I can in my life. But with what I do, because like I coach people, right? So like it's my main part of what I do now as a living is like coach people, self-discovery, self-development, personal development, and all the mindset sort of stuff around it, right? So a lot of the stuff, the main focus with my clients is helping them to create that time with themselves. So that's where, answering your question, how it works, you develop the awareness because you build the relationship better with yourself. It's uncomfortable as fuck for a while because you're not used to it. Most people are uncomfortable. It's like when you get bored. If you get bored, that's a sign that you're not comfortable with yourself. Hey, it makes sense, right? Because then you're looking for something to do.
The phone comes out.
Exactly right. We go on our phone and distract ourselves. So how are you going to get to know yourself like that? You know what I mean? So I have intentional time as much as possible. It's my main focus and the main thing I get my clients to sort of dive into. But it's a beautiful process to watch, man. Like it doesn't take long to start reaping the rewards from it and noticing yourself, getting to know yourself. It's like a new relationship. Like you learn to love yourself just like when you meet someone and it's that, that whole hype at the start of a relationship where it's that, excitement and this and that. You can have that just with yourself. And just that develops the awareness to be more aware of when we're getting caught in things that bring us out of the moment. So then we bring it back. So that's practice, man. Just practice, but people aren't patient enough for this stuff. That's the problem. We always want that instant gratification for everything. But it's all in that part that we want to miss. The gold, man, in everything is in the shit that we don't want to sit through, literally. So like, I go real deep. This is the thing I do. I get caught in a tangent. No, it's not. But like, I get real passionate, man, about this. And it's like, man, I've been through some shit, bro, in my life. Hey, like, honestly, man. And I've like always had this underlying knowing that I was meant to be doing more. Like, and then everything's gonna work out for me. I'm meant to be doing something else that I wasn't doing back in the past, and everything in my life led me to this. And like, the more I've opened up to it, the more I've been drawn into it, and the more I've been presented like with guidance. Man, the universe is real, man. Like, I don't care what anyone says, that shit is real, man. Whatever you want to call it, universe, God, whatever, spirit, anything. It's just a higher power to me. I just like to call it universe, right? It's outside of us. Like, we can only comprehend so much in this body, right? That's it. Like, we're limited. So if we get caught in the thought of, I want my life to go this way because that story looks like it would be good for me. You know what I mean? This is what looks like it's right for me, or I'm meant to be here. Like,
society told us to do
Society does that.
Parents.
That's right. But where's all that come from? It's only come from what you've seen, right? So in our limited logical mind, then there's an expanse of knowledge and knowing outside of us when we open up to it. It's called the unknown, right? And I embrace that shit, man. I get so excited about the unknown. But the thing is, majority of people are fearful of it, fearful of change, because they want to know things are going to work out if they try something.
That fear is good. I believe
Man,
so.
100%. Fear, this is the problem. People look at it, fear, it's as a negative thing. It's a thing that protects us. It's not. It's not that, because fear promotes limiting thoughts. And it doesn't want us to embrace change because it's fueled by the ego. Our minds are fueled by our ego. Our ego doesn't like change, and our ego doesn't like the present moment. Our ego likes those repetitive thoughts because it keeps us where we are, and it keeps us thinking about past, future, and it's like, yeah, like you don't want to do that. Like this could happen or that could happen. What if you do this and that goes wrong? How we get caught in overthinking and all that sort of shit. And then
It's fucking scenarios.
exactly, and then we never try anything new.
Yeah, it's interesting because it all comes down to perspective, doesn't it?
Really does, man.
For me,
Perspective's everything.
I used to let anxiety really hold me back, to the point where I would wake up very fatigued, vomiting if I had to go do something.
Oh, yeah.
A big point was when I changed schools for year 11 and 12. I remember that morning and I was like, could not get out of bed. I made myself so sick because I created this scenario in my head that it was going to be bad. Bad stuff's going to happen to me.
Doesn't it show you how powerful your thoughts are? Hey, it
Crazy.
can be physical.
And what I've come to learn is, bro, all the shit that you create in your head, all those scenarios, they never come true.
No, it's all a story we create. And whatever you give power to has power over you, right? So I heard that somewhere. I don't know where I heard it. I like to give people credit sometimes when I hear that, but I don't remember where I heard that one. But it's true. Whatever we create, whatever we want to believe in, right? Our beliefs is what we create as our truth. And that can be anything. But the problem is we make lies our truth as well, and lies about ourselves. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of that. I can't be that. I don't have, the capacity, or I don't have the knowledge to achieve that, or we limit ourselves. All those limiting beliefs we give truth to. So we cripple ourselves. We literally imprison ourselves with our thoughts, and then we completely block off ourselves to the endless possibilities that are out there and opportunities. They're out there, bro, all the time. And it's like that, and that's an energy that attracts it. I'm so big on it, man. I want a big part of my morning routine, and it's like what I implement into my coaching too, is like try to sit in that energy as much as possible of just excitement, gratitude, appreciation for life, and the unknown possibilities that are available to us. Because, man, if you can get excited about that shit, like I fucking love surprises, man. Like I love it. I love being surprised with shit. I'm very spontaneous, love adventure. And I'm like, now I've experienced it so much, giving trust in the unknown, stepping into my truth, following the guidance of things that get presented to me. Like, let's just try this. You're being pulled over here. Just start walking that way and see what happens.
What's the worst that can happen?
Man, that's right. But we create the stories about what could happen, and then we don't end up doing it. As soon as you let yourself get controlled by the thought, you're fucked, basically. Like, that's what ends up happening. We limit ourselves. But those little pulls we get for things, and even the senses that come through, we know when we're in a situation we don't like, or we're unhappy with, or we shouldn't be there. We're in a job we hate, a relationship that is really toxic, something like that. We know, but we don't want to face that and accept it because we're fearful of change, right? And I don't know anything other than this. You're being presented with those feelings of discomfort in those situations to try to make you move and shift. It's what the universe does. It tries to make you uncomfortable to move, right? But we don't pay attention to it. So, and the more and more you ignore it, the quieter it gets. But sometimes it can get really fucking loud at a point first, but then we still ignore it. And then it's like, all right, the universe just throws his hands up, like, and just like, okay, you take control then, sweet, you know better. You know what I mean? And then you wonder why things keep going wrong for you, and you keep circulating through the same unhappy cycles. Man, 100%.
This podcast is around mental health, and a lot of people, a lot of men commit suicide.
Yeah.
Why? Because we don't face our feelings.
That's right.
Embrace them. We don't work through them. And
Keep it all in.
I was trapped for so long and letting anxiety take control of me. And it all came down to a change of perspective of seeing it as it's actually a sign of something that I need to go towards, which we've been speaking about here. And once I just flipped that perspective, I was like, wow, anxiety is actually a good thing. It's a fucking sign that I need.
It is, man. It's guidance.
Yeah. Because growing up, I'm naturally shy, naturally introverted, and everyone would tell me, family members, oh, you can't speak to that person. You know, you just can't communicate.
Yeah, I was the same.
I believed it.
Yeah.
And I got trapped in the comfort zone of just being by myself and not communicating. Then I started this fucking podcast, and now here I am 4 years later, actually stringing some sentences together and having a conversation. And it's just amazing to see that when you do flip your perspective, what you're actually capable of. It's just
endless, bro.
Not getting trapped in those limiting beliefs, because it really does hold you back. Really fucking does, man.
It's a prison, fully, literally prison, and we've built it around ourselves. Like, we hold the key to it, but we just don't want to unlock it because we're scared of what's on the other side of the gate. You know what I mean? But I'm like, but we're not happy where we are, though. So it seems insane, right? Eckhart Tolle talks about that shit a lot. He's like, it's insanity to repeat the same shit that's keeping you where you are. That is an unhappy position in life. What are you fearful of trying something new for when you're unhappy here anyway? You know, you may as well try. You know, it's more than likely going to end up better. So like, and you're never going to know. So we choose the familiar discomfort over unfamiliar discomfort that could potentially come, because we don't know, because it hasn't happened yet. You know, we get fearful of shit that hasn't happened yet, but we know that the cycle we're living in, if we're in an unhappy place, we know exactly what that's going to give us, more unhappiness, because just reflect on the last 12 months or however long you've been feeling this way. This is putting it out there for people to really take this in. So like, do this right now if you're listening. Reflect on where you are right now, the things you've been doing, the thoughts, actions, and feelings that you've been putting out, and relate that to your reality right now. I bet it's a direct reflection of your reality, the way you think, feel, and act. That's a Joe Dispenza thing too. It's a reflection of your reality. And if you look at the way you've been living over the last 12 months, if you think back 12 months and then another 12 months, and the further you can go back that you can't see anything different, that's a real big hit in the face of like, shit, like, you know. And if you can be strong enough and courageous enough to face that and be like, do I really want to go another 12 months, another 12 months, another 12 months and still be here? If that makes you uncomfortable right now and brings up anxiety or any disturbing feelings right now, this is your sign that you need to make change, because nothing changes until you change. So, it's true, but right? It sounds so simple, bro, but it's so profound. It's us. All we got to do is make the change. I've got this vision. I've spoke about it on my podcast a few times. I visualize the universe just up there watching everyone, right? Just watching everyone, just waiting for people to just be ready to change. He's watching them all of us suffer in our current situations that we've put ourselves in, right? And we're just living it every day, doing the same shit that makes us unhappy. The universe is like, all right, cool. Starts to see someone getting a little bit of a, you know, urge or a bit of a shake up to, you know, they start to get interested and they're starting to see things like, oh, you know, so it'll start to present you with some opportunity, little things, subtle things, little signs, and, you know, present you with someone might cross your path that might have an opportunity for you, or, you know, or anything. It could be anything, right? If we pay attention to those things, the universe is like, all right, oh, sweet, like paying more attention. Here's another opportunity. And I look at it like balls of light being thrown at you. Here's another one, bang, and it hits you and you're like, shit. But then we think, oh, no, that's too good to be true. Or that's a coincidence, or this or that. That's a whole nother kettle of fish, right? There's no such thing as coincidences. Coincidences are the synchronicities that are trying to guide us in a direction. But when we say it's a coincidence, oh, no, that's too good to be true, that couldn't happen. Like, good things don't happen for me like that. We're ignoring the signs. And then the universe will pull back a bit. All right, cool. You're not ready yet. Then it'll happen again. You'll be presented again. Like I said before, you keep getting presented with the shit that you're not healed from or not learning from. Like, it's why people find themselves, is a good example, that attracting the same people in relationships, and they end up going through the same cycles with people in relationships. because it's like, it starts good, but it's because they're seeking something outside of them, that because they want a certain feeling from someone. They think happiness is in another person,
that
right?
dependency and lack of self.
Exactly right. So that's a whole other thing as well. But like, I'm just trying to make an example. So, but when we start to pay attention and trust, the universe, like, oh, this guy's like, he's going. He's like, he doesn't know where he's headed. He's just walking that way because he's following the signs. All right, here you go. Bang. You trusted. There's your answer. And then you're like, all of a sudden, oh shit. You know what I mean? Man, I've had clients, bro, that have like come to me. One particular one, I'll tell you this quick little story, right? He was in this job, in his dream job, right? I'm not going to say too much detail because I don't like to name people, whatever. But like, he was in his dream job, right? But he was treated like shit there. Absolutely treated like shit. He was like not physical abuse, but like mental abuse all the time from the boss. He used to treat everyone like shit. But he stuck it out because he's like, oh, this is what I want to do. But I'm like, maybe this is just how it is. He just started telling himself that, I've got my dream job, so I've just got to put up with that shit, right? All this stuff was happening. The boss ended up getting a bit physical with a couple of people and that sort of thing. And everyone was starting to threaten they're going to leave and whatever. He was still fearful to go. And he's like, oh, shit. And then we started talking. He came on board. We started doing coaching with me. 2 weeks in we were. And he's telling me all this. And I'm like, bro, started to tell him that you're in a position right now. You're in a testing position. The universe is like, yeah, here, you're in your dream job, but it doesn't mean it's where you're meant to be. Like that dream job, there's multiple other places around, but he was like, oh, but if I leave, like, I don't know if I'm going to I need to get another job lined up first, this and that. And I said, no, you don't. I was like, I really felt it, right? So I encouraged him. He goes, all right, if one next thing that happens, I'm going to leave. Literally the next day, his boss grabbed someone by the throat and held him up against the wall right in front of him. And he's like, shit, he freaked out because he's like, man, that's not a sign. And like, what? Literally him and 3 other guys walked out that same day, right? And he was like, left, and he ended up getting home. The fears came through. He rang me because that's what was so good. Like why I love my position in the coaching, just to help people, just feel a little bit more comfort in what they're doing and the decisions they're making, giving them that support. I'm like, it's all right. I said, man, you've done what I just explained. He's trusted, what he was being presented with, shown trust without having something lined up. Literally, man, 2 days later, he gets a phone call from a guy who used to work there. They got on real well. He left to go start his own business like a year earlier. Ring him up out of the blue 2 days later and goes, oh, hey, man, he told him when he left, when he gets the business up and going, he probably have a position there. It just happened in alignment. And you could say again, oh, what a coincidence. But it was 2 days later, bro, and he gets a call and goes, oh, man, I'm like, how do you feel that coming to work? He didn't even know he left his job. Gets a call, offered him more money, a brand new workshop where it is that they work in, like new environment. He goes, and it was like, he thought where he was, he loved the work. And he goes, this was blew it out of the water. Literally 2 days later, straight into the new job, more money, better environment, treated with respect. And now he's been there for like 2 years and absolutely killing it. And the growth in him has been crazy. And he's just like, man, like he laughed, he rang me, he goes, bro, how did you like plan this or something? Like he thought I planned it. And I was like, what do you mean? So you know what I mean? Like big things, man, like that happen. And it's like, this is the thing. It will come from not needing to figure it out and not knowing the answers, just trusting in the feeling that you're being pulled in a new, different direction.
Just taking those steps.
That's right. It's our intuition speaking to us, man. Like we listen, it's a problem. We're too caught up in our minds, which is driven by the ego that doesn't like change. So it makes sense why we stay where we are. Our intuition's a lot quieter, but it's only because we haven't given it attention. When we give it more attention and trust in it more, it gets louder. And the feeling, or the problem is it's not spoken in words. So we don't have the clear clarity of like, you should do this because it's going to work. It's just a feeling that I'm not meant to be here and I know it, but I don't know where to go, but I'm just going to leave anyway and go towards something, and then it will come,
How do we tap into that, our intuition? You're so caught up in thoughts. How do we quiet this fucking thing down?
It comes from the time with self. Yeah. Like I said again, it comes back to that, bro. This is what I've come to learn over my own journey. Like 4 years, I said I've been doing this now. The last 2 years, proper deep in it. The better relationship I've built with myself and the more time I've given to myself, that's where our intuition speaks to us. It's called stillness. It creates stillness in your life. Stillness is a place of no distraction. right? And so if we never got no distraction, how can our intuition talk to us? If we're always distracted on our phone or watching TV or this or that, you're not creating the space for your intuition to come through. So you need to get away from stuff, take intentional time outside or on your own, sit through the initial thoughts of this is uncomfortable and fight past the urges of wanting to go grab your phone because you reassure yourself that that's just habit because it's what I always do. That's why it's like an addiction. We have an addiction to distraction as humans. It's what we have. And it's just because by virtue of the time that we live in, there's so much technology, so much that you could do. You don't need to be bored because there's always something we could be doing. But the problem is we don't realize that we're missing out and we don't know who we truly are because we're caught in all these distractions. So for me, that's everything. I'm like, I want to know who I am. I want to know who the true me is. I want to know what my passion and purpose is. Not doing this job because it makes this much money. And I think that makes me happy and that's success. It's not. Bro, I went through all this, man. Like I've been married, man, early, like had the whole life, bought my first house at 19, bought my second house at 21, was married, had money in the bank. I had good, like nice cars. I was just chasing. I thought that was success, getting more and more, making more and more money, buying bigger things, impressing people. I had people telling me at like the age of 24, man, you must be so happy. I hear it all the time. Like you've got everything. And I was like, just never paid too much attention to it. And I was hearing it all the time. I literally had the house with the picket fence and fucking all that shit. I literally had a white picket fence for it. And I was like, and then it was one time someone said it to me. I'm like, why? Like people are saying this, but I'm not happy. Like, what am I missing? And I'm like, I must need a better car or something. Or I must need this because I'm like, my awareness, that's where my awareness was at the time. I'm like, what haven't I got? Like, and I'm like, I didn't have myself. I never asked me what made me happy. I was going off what society thought. Get married, have a house, make money, buy cool shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was what framed my life. You know what I mean? It's crazy, bro.
It's crazy how many people get trapped in there.
Yeah.
And a big thing I push is, yes, the external stuff is awesome. House, car, whatever the case may be.
But not if it's not if you're attached to it giving you a feeling.
Yes. If you're buying that shit to impress people that you don't even care about.
Exactly right. That's massive.
Why? The number one thing is, what are you feeling internally? And what we've been speaking about, having that relationship with yourself, knowing who you actually are, and knowing the feelings that you want to feel on a day-to-day basis. And that's a big exercise that I've had to do recently because I got trapped in, feeling I had to grow this podcast, grow a business, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, Nick, like, what do I want to feel every single day? And a big thing for me was that sense of freedom. And I was like, okay, what makes me feel free and happy? Going into nature, connecting with myself, spending quality time with my partner and my daughter. I was like, okay, can I do this basically every day? Yeah, I can. So when you start doing that, I start feeling those feelings of freedom and happiness, and anything external is just a cherry on top.
Yeah.
Just a cherry on top. Number one thing is internal. External is awesome.
Yeah.
It's just a bonus.
100%. I love how you explain that, bro, because I resonate with that deeply. Like, thank you for saying that way. Because that's literally what it is. And because, like I said, everything's a reflection of what's within us. So if we have deep, true love for ourselves and we're filled with happiness already, anything around us will just add to that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a reflection and we attract what we put out. Like, there's this huge like mantra as well, or quote that I've always resonated with, like, be what you want to attract. Like, the problem is we want things to feel how we want to feel. You know what I mean? But it starts with us first. It's the opposite way around to how we're brought up. But like, we're brought up that way through school system, all of that. It's like, you got to work hard and make money, do this, become successful. And it's all fueled around that. Like, when are you ever told growing up that you need to learn to love yourself? Like, never. When were you ever told that? I was never told that. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's the most important thing. Like, seriously, like, we're only able to give it the capacity, like that, the capacity of love that we have for ourselves. That's the capacity that we're able to give. So like, this is a big thing that confronts a lot of people, because like, if you think you love the people around you and you don't love yourself fully, you're not loving those people as much as you could potentially love them. So if you really care and love the people, you know, like your daughter, isn't it? Yeah, daughter, your partner, and this and that, and you at the moment know you're loving them to the capacity as deep as you know. But if you know that capacity can be even more, you'd want that, right? Because it's like you want to love them as much as possible, and everything's love, bro. It's all love. Love's a vibration and a frequency, and it's the most valuable one. Like, it's the most valuable currency in the world is love, man. Like, you know what I mean? Love, and like just being present in it, sharing it, because it's transferable. And the more you can give, the more you get back, and it enhances everything else in our life. It's unbelievable, man, when you start tapping into it. Like, it's just, man, it gets me so excited thinking about it, because it's actually so simple, bro, but no one wants to accept that, because then everyone can just do it. People think that things need to be complicated to be important. That, you know what I mean? Yeah. They truly do. Like,
simple things in life that truly matter.
It really is, bro. It really, really is. And it's like you said, it's why we get caught up in going all the courses. Like, I went through all this, bro, reading book after book after book, podcast after podcast after podcast. I don't remember the few things that stood out that helped me. It's all helped me still. But what I realized, I was chasing a feeling. Whenever you're chasing a feeling, that's identifying that you don't feel that way.
It's like quick dopamine.
That's right. But like, whenever you like have the awareness, or whenever you attach to not having something, that's what you're identifying with, and it puts you in a state of lack. That attracts more lack, because you're putting out to the universe that you're not happy with where you're at right now in your journey, in this present moment that you've been given and gifted with to be here. Really, like, I'm so big on the whole appreciation for life. Like, that fuels everything. Gratitude, like I said, like going deep, man, like just being grateful for being here. A big thing, like I just told you, I went to a spiritual retreat in Mexico, right? You're probably going to go there, yeah? And like, man, it's fueled. So if anyone's read the book, The Four Agreements, man, I call it my Bible. It's like, I've read so many books, and that was the one that stood out to me just so much. I don't even know how many times I've read it and listened to the audio book. I highly encourage everyone to go and listen to it. Like, even 2.5 hour audio book. It's so quick to listen to. You got a copy of it there? Yeah, I can see it right there. Yeah. And man, the amount of times I've read it, and it's like reading it for the first time. I was attracted to this retreat in Mexico, and it's the two sons of the author that run the retreat, because the author, Don Miguel Ruiz, he's getting pretty old now, and he actually just had a heart transplant not long before this retreat. He would have probably been there as well. And man, like, what I felt from this, bro, like, seriously, that book always connected with me. But like, it's the underlying messages within that book. It all comes back to love, appreciation for life, realizing that we're already perfect just by being alive. We don't need to live up to an image of perfection, because that's chasing. And whenever you're chasing something, you're like, what are you trying to chase? Like, because it's like when you're chasing something, it's like, it's saying that you're not happy where you are, because you're trying to get somewhere else. You know what I mean? So you want to turn chasing into attracting, which is, again, comes back to being what you want to attract. Yeah. So, but you can sit in the energy of the things you want, you know, visualization, meditation, all that, like, it attracts all of that stuff. So man, the biggest thing came from this retreat was how deep they went on self-love, and how much that just impacts everything, literally everything. The relationship with yourself is the foundation of the reality that you create for yourself. Like, so you only need to focus on that, and everything else will just start to unfold the way it's meant to unfold for you. But, you know what I mean? But like, again, it sounds so simple. People aren't aware of how to do it, but once you start doing it, you get better at it, like anything, you know what I mean? So what I took from this retreat, man, I'm like, far out, like the way these teachers spoke, man, like the energy in their voice and the appreciation and love they had for each other. Like, man, I felt like I was in this big bubble of love the whole time I was over there. These people, like 50 people in this retreat from all over America, South America, and that sort of thing. And it was instant acceptance. It was like perceptions of everyone went out the door, all different ages, everyone, we all just one. And that's what we are. That's the problem. Like you said before, perception, man, it's perspective and everything is everything. The thing is we create these different perspectives, but our perspectives are always going to be different because we're different people. You know what I mean? Like if you look at that can there, your perspective of that can is different to what my perspective is. You know what I mean? Like it's just the way you see it and how you relate to that brand or whatever. Like it's just everything's different based off how you perceive it. Like, you know what I mean? And that's right. Nothing's right or wrong. Like it really isn't, bro. And that's the thing. We put labels on things that this is right, this is wrong. So we don't do this because it's not acceptable or, you know, whatever. Again, getting controlled by society and what's acceptable. But coming back to self, bro, it always comes back to that. It's just that relationship with yourself, man, is everything. And the more you can go in on that, like we just spoke before we went on as well, facing yourself in the mirror as much as you can, like that's confronting, but it's uncomfortable because you're not used to it and you don't know yourself. If you can't look at yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself without feeling weird or uncomfortable, that's showing you that you don't have a good relationship with yourself, because why would you be uncomfortable to talk to yourself? You know what I mean? So
there's all comes down to self-love and facing yourself, and you haven't always been this way.
No, not always, bro. No, I learned.
What do we need to know about you to better understand the man that you are today?
Man, I knew I was drawn into where I am because of the life experience I've had. And I've been through some shit, man. Like, I won't go into a heap of detail because it'll take me like all night, but like, yeah, but like, that's beautiful, by the way. Like, I'm feeling so connected to you right now. And I feel like, you know, when things are meant for you, when time becomes the illusion that it is and out the window, you know, we're just so present in this moment right now. And I'm really grateful for your presence. So, thank you for that. And, basically, man, to summarize it, I had a very physical and mental abusive upbringing through childhood. Learned how to detach from emotion very young because of abuse and stuff like that. And again, this is my perspective on my upbringing. Okay, so like this is what I perceived and what I experienced through my perspective. My parents probably see it different. My brothers and sisters may see it different.
Have you had this conversation with them?
I have, yeah, and that's what it is. But I already have the awareness that that's just how it is. Everyone's perspective is different. This is what I felt from how I was treated. I felt abandoned, rejected, not worthy, incapable, felt like a nuisance, like all of that sort of stuff. So through the physical abuse especially, used to get really badly flogged from mum and dad. And like, I used to know that I couldn't physically handle it. So it was like, it used to happen, I'd have out-of-body experiences. I would hear my dad basically get home from work and I would be so scared because my mum the whole time would be like, oh, you're going to cop it when your dad gets home, like you wait, and you'd be getting drilled. So that was the mental abuse of like, you know, going at you, getting you so fearful for when you just literally, I'd hear my dad from down the street sometimes. I just knew it was him. I'd start to go into this zone of like, I'd go hide somewhere in the room, get ready, hear him come through the door, walk through, and then I'd just be like I'd come out of my body and I'd like watch myself getting bashed, like, and I literally, it was like, and I didn't realize at the time what it was. It just started happening because it was like, you know, that went on for years, right? Really abusive like that. That led to then seeking validation, seeking acceptance because, you know, felt rejected, didn't feel loved and all that sort of thing. So when I got into, this is skimming through, like I said, once I got to like early teenagehood, school and that, all I wanted to do was be accepted. I wanted to be in the cool kids groups at school, this or that. Even though they treated me like shit, they allowed me to be in the group, so I didn't care. So I used to dress like them, didn't even like the clothes they wore, typical Nautica lad wearing stuff, right? Never liked those clothes at all, but they were wearing them, so I used to wear them. And used to get treated like crap. I was the youngest in the group, but they allowed me to be around them, so I felt accepted. I would ignore all the shit that they would say to me all the time, you know what I mean? And like, so that was all getting suppressed. That led to then meeting my ex-wife now, who I have my son with. I got a 6-year-old son, Noah. We met that we were 16, and then literally she became my main focus. Like literally lost interest in everything else. I was like, oh, I've got something to put my love and attention and someone to impress now, like, you know, and whatever. Got really caught in trying to impress her impress her parents, and then I had this thing in my mind of like, I want to show everybody that like I'm more than what they perceive me to be. So it kind of became that like, fuck yous, watch what I'm going to do. And then it just became focused, like started working, saving all my money. We got together, my ex-wife and I got engaged when we were like 17 or 18. We ended up buying our house. I was like a fourth year apprentice, bought my first house when I was 19. And this was all to like stick it to my parents and like, you know what I mean? And it's like, that sort of shit's only good for so long. Like you can use that sort of stuff, but like it's not healthy, right? And because I'm not doing it for me. So went through all that, man. House, we ended up moving into a second house like 2 years later. Things were going great, working for myself, making a lot of money. But I never knew who I was. I was living a life that was based off providing a life for someone else that I thought she wanted. And that's how I lived my life. I was like, if you're happy, I'm happy. That typical thing, right? And so I would just buy all this stuff. I felt good because like, my mum didn't even own a house when I bought my first house from when she had separated from my dad earlier. So I was like, I've got a house, you don't have a house. And this is all in my head. And I'm just like, look how good I'm doing and this and that. Got caught in all of that. And then, yeah, like I said to you, it ended up getting to that point of then like, having all this stuff and everything, and the people saying all that stuff to me, you must be so happy. And then it was like one day and I'm like, I'm actually not. Like, why? And I started asking questions to myself. And man, it got to a point and I'm like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I've never asked myself what I want. And then literally, man, like it went from that to then like just deciding I don't want to be here anymore. Literally sat my wife down and was like, I can't be together. I want to experience life. I want to go travel. I want to, she was the only person I'd ever slept with as well. And so I was like, I wanted to experience other women, all this and that. I was intrigued by all of that because I just hadn't experienced it. And there's literally, man, like this was the first thing where I saw that like when you make a decision, things just start to unfold. Because like literally like our house sold in a week. We separated. Our money was all split within 2 weeks. And it was just like, it all just went through so quick. And I'm like, holy shit, I just made this decision. A few weeks later, I'm in my own rental house because I just moved into a house on my own. Never been in my own space before. And I've got all this money in the bank and I've been so responsible for my life. I just want to go be reckless now. And I went on this like just tangent, man, of just like 6 months of partying, really bad into drugs, all that sort of stuff. And like, it just led me down a, like, I never regretted any of it. It was like crazy times. I was experiencing this stuff for the first time, man. I ended up in like Cancun, spring break in Mexico, and I was like going all these different places, all of this. But like, I hit so many like kind of like rock bottom spots in my life that never felt like rock bottom to me because I never accepted it in my mind. So I was saying to you kind of before we went on, like my mindset to me is always like I've had pride in how strong it is. And I've always thought that was me. And that's why I've get through everything I get through. So just a quick little backtrack. I actually had testicular cancer twice as well. Yeah, I had it when I was 19 and had it again when I was 24, like not long before I left my wife. Both of those times that happened, I had my family freaking out, this and that and whatever. I just had this knowing, like, I'm sweet, I'll be fine, like, whatever. I've always had this strong sense of knowing that I'll always be okay, like, just not knowing what it is. It was just this knowing, like, I didn't know how to explain it. So that happened, get told I got cancer at 19, sent everyone upset. I'm like, what are you worried about? I'll be fine, it'll be sweet. Ended up being fine, like, went through a surgery and stuff, got it all sorted out and whatever. And then I was good. And I was just like, see, and then it was very ego-driven back then. Like I was saying to you, I used to have like ego-driven affirmations and all that sort of stuff without realizing that's what I was doing. The amount of times my ex-wife used to say to me, oh, you're so like cocky. You always think everything's going to work out for you because I'd always say it. And I'm like, well, it does. And like, everything works out for me. I believe it. And I made it a belief, you know what I mean? And that's how it always worked out. And so it ended up getting to this point, man, and then that's when I started being in positions where things would get a little bit unsettled, and I'd be presented into situations that would be, you know, challenging, testing, whatever. Like I said, I got pretty heavy into drugs and whatever for quite a while. Ended up getting myself out of that. That period, I went 6 months later, I ended up back with my ex-wife. we ended up going on to fast track a little bit on for another 4.5 years. Because I had cancer, I had to do sperm banking and everything back when I was 24. So we would never wanted kids. We always said we weren't going to have kids. And then something just spurred something in us. And then felt a need, like a pull towards, we were supposed to have a kid. So I had to do IVF and all that, obviously. And we ended up going in and doing that. And again, I had this sense of knowing that because I already had a low sperm count at the time when I did that deposit. And then IVF as well is obviously, hit and miss, whatever. I had this sense of knowing I'm going to have a boy and it's going to work the first time. Just was in my awareness. Like, I just knew it, like, so knew it. Happened. Had IVF, worked the first time, so quick. It was meant to happen, had a son. And I believe we were brought back together just for my son, to have him, because he wasn't naturally ever meant to be who he is. Like, 24-year-old sperm deposit. I was 30, she was 30 at the time we had my son. So I think that's just amazing how, like, medicine works like that. Because, like, you know what I mean? If you, like, for example, if you got your partner pregnant 2 nights later, you would have a different child.
Yes.
Right?
True.
Yeah. So I had it like 7 years later or 6 years later. So it's like, realistically, like, that could have still happened for you. That couldn't have happened for me. My wife's 30-year-old egg, my 24-year-old deposit. The timing doesn't align. You know what I mean? So, like, I just always thought that's, like, incredible, like, when I think about that, because it's like, it's awesome, man. Like, so my son is literally who he is. He would have been a different kid because it would have been a different, Yeah, so it's cool. Hey, you don't even really think about that stuff, right? So, because then when we had my son, then it was like, I don't know what happened, man. Something come between us, and it was like we weren't meant to be parents together. 6 months after he was born, we separated. That first 6 months, I went really off the rails because I was like, I just felt like I wasn't meant to be here. I'm not meant to be in this part of my life right now. Got even worse into drugs then, partying. I was like really, really off the rails. We ended up separating. And then, man, just got more and more and more reckless, right? And I had some encounters, man, like where I'd been overseas, really heavy in drugs, almost overdosed a couple of times. And I said to you, what I shared with you before, I swear I talked myself out of it, mindset. Like, and I was like so convinced, my mindset. I remember feeling myself slipping away and telling myself, I've only got me now. There's no one around. I'm like, I'm going to be fine. I literally sat there, man. I've never actually shared this on a podcast. I've shared a lot on my own, but like, I sat there with my hands in my eyes going, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, for about 3 hours. Felt this unbelievable pressure trying to punch my eyes out from the behind, from the inside my head. And if I let go, that my eyes were going to burst out of my head. And I was holding them in, and I was just kept myself calm and just kept saying, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And then it was like hours later, literally. And then I started feeling this slight relief of pressure. And then I was like, I knew it. I got myself out of it. Sweet. Again, a bit ego-ish, cocky-ish. Like I knew it. Like I used to push myself so far with partying and drug taking because I just always knew I'd be fine, thinking I can just do whatever I want with my body and I'll be okay. And I swear, man, I was like, I have so many of these types of things happen. The cancer, the self-inflicted shit like that with drugs and whatever. And there was always just this knowing. And it was like, I put it back to now, like the universe was just like, I'm going to just keep you hanging on, like, because there's something that's meant for you. You're going to be able to help people with what you've gone through and where you've been at in these spots, in these positions. And you're going to be able to be the guidance, be the support for people who don't know how to get out of that. And it was like, that's what it was. I just felt like that, but not in words, if that makes sense. And then it's kind of what happened, man. I started getting all of a sudden shit feelings every time I'd be caught up in something. And I was like, I knew I was kind of getting pulled in a different direction. Started paying a little bit of attention to it. I went through the typical cycle of going really good away from all the drugs and partying for a few months, then falling back into it. That went on for about 2 years. And then all of a sudden, man, I started putting out positive content just through my Instagram page, and people started paying attention to it. Started getting good comments. Oh, I like that one. That made me feel good. Like, oh man, you're doing well. Started getting compliments that people were noticing my change. That was really powerful for me. and just started running with it. Didn't think anything of it, just felt good from helping people. That was it, just with what I was putting out.
What was that moment that made you actually want to record a video and put it on social media?
Well, no videos at that time. I was making quotes. Yeah, so all my page started just turning into quotes. And it's where I came up with the Mastered Mindset name. It just came into my awareness one day, and I was just putting out plain black posts with white writing, and I was just making them myself, and just quotes that were coming to me from reading books, and, you know, that would stand out to me from podcasts, and I was just sharing stuff like that.
Writing it for yourself?
No. So I wasn't. So I thought I was, but my intention always was this will be helpful for someone. Okay. So that's what was a bit funny about it. So what made you ask that question?
I just feel, even for me, when I make content, a lot of the times it's posting stuff that I need to hear.
Yeah.
Because I know if I need to hear it, other people resonate with that.
I love that. See, that's the thing. I don't know what it was. I don't know. For some reason, everything I've always done has been underlyingly, it's always just been there, this strong sense of someone needs to hear this right now, or someone needs to read this, or whatever. That's always been what's come through to me. I think subconsciously, I needed to hear it too, but I don't think I've ever, like, I don't know, let that like sink in or something, if that makes sense. I don't know. So, but anyway, that's what happened. And then what happened? So I was listening to Rob Dial's podcast, The Mindset Mentor. I was sharing a lot of his stuff, and that's what I was doing, just sharing a lot of stuff I'd see. He ended up contacting me through DM one day, and I was like, well, I thought it was like a scam thing first. And I was like, oh, like, I started responding back, and he's like, man, I really love your content, like this and that. He goes like, and he literally asked me the question, like, he was trying to sell me like his thing, but I was like, he goes, have you ever thought about like being a coach? Because that's what he trains coaches like to be coaches. I was like, what do you mean coach? I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't know what a mindset coach or personal development coach or whatever was then. And he goes, I love your content. He goes, I can see it's probably helping a lot of people. Like, you ever thought about that being a career? And we just got in this long thread of conversation. And I just, again, that was then that sense of knowing came through. I was like, fuck, something, I don't know what it is, but something's really feeling connected to this. So he ended up going, look, why don't you talk to one of my, people, whatever. I just see how you feel, see what you think about it. Went into it, still didn't even really know what it was about. Had this call with this guy, man, and I just remember him talking, and I was just like, I need to do this. Like, it was a 10-week course, signed up for it. I didn't even really have the money at the time, and I was like, it's $8,000 or something, and I was like, but I just knew I had to make it work. Started, man, never looked back. Like, I went into that community, and it was this big open Facebook community, and it was 3 calls a week. And because in America, I was getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning, didn't realize at the time, but again, it didn't feel any resistance to it once I found out, because I was like, I knew I needed to do it. So just straight committed for 10 weeks and ended up, man, doing that, and then started thinking, well, shit, this is where I'm meant to be. And then started having people reaching out to me going, man, I've noticed, like, they noticed my change. People used to know me as the partier, the reckless person, like guy who, was always running amok, this and that. Then people started noticing my change. And then I had people asking questions, be like, what have you been doing, this and that, and got curious. And this is what I say to people, when you go on these personal development journeys, at first it becomes for you, but then it's actually for a lot of other people as well, because it starts to become contagious, and like it starts to become attractive to people, and they want to know, because they're seeing it in you, this transformation, and they want to know what you're doing. So then I started just giving people advice, and then it just unfolded from there. Yeah, man, it was literally that. So yeah.
I want to ask, what's your relationship with the terminology coach? Because for me, I didn't like the word coach.
Yeah.
Because in this, I guess, industry that you're in, so many of them that have the wrong intentions. They're just looking for the quick buck.
Yep.
They don't really care about their clients. And it's like every Tom, Dick, and Harry is popping up saying they're a coach now.
Yeah.
For me, I hated it.
Yeah.
How did you see it? What's your perspective?
So yeah, I do resonate with that a lot. I like to look at it more like I'm just here to guide people on their journey, and I really, really believe and trust that the right people are guided to you. So at first I used to put out a lot more content trying to attract like clients and stuff like that. I don't do any advertising for coaching clients or anything that I do, because I'm trusting in the universe that just by what messages I'm putting out, the right people will be connected to it. because I've had a lot of clients over the years now that some, you know, I knew they weren't really my ideal client, and because they came to me and I just was like, oh, he's a new client, sweet. Like when I started paying attention to that, now everything I do, I trust is meant for me, and the right connections are meant for me, and it comes from speaking my truth. So I only put out messages and only put out content that resonates with me. I went through a real long thing of like just having to put out 3 posts a day and this and that and whatever I could think of posting because I thought it could be helpful for someone, I would post. But it was forced.
Comes a job.
Exactly right. And I really didn't want to be doing it. I was doing it because I felt like I had to. As soon as I started pulling back and being like, just trusting that the right people will be connected to my message, they will resonate with my story, they'll resonate with the way I speak, and they will feel something from beneath my words. And then they will reach out and ask the question. And that's how all my clients have come to me. They'll hear me again, like do something like this episode, or I'll put out a post on Instagram or one of my podcasts, and they might have been listening to me for ages. And then they'll hear me say something a certain way, and they'll be like, oh, like something's, you know, I feel something there. Like there's something this person can teach me.
I need a message.
Yeah. And then they'll reach it, and then that's how it comes. I get a message from people now, and it's so consistent. And I'll be like, man, I really don't know what I'm looking for or what I'm, you know, after right now. I go, but hearing you speak about this made me feel like this, and I just had an urge to have to just message you, like, can we have a conversation? And I'm like, cool. And then we'll have a conversation, go into it, and then it's like we start talking, and then that's when the knowing comes. So I say to people at the start of calls when they connect with me, I'm like, I'm not here to try to sign you up because I don't want to work with you if I don't feel connected with you. And we will both know that after this conversation. And so it takes away the pressure of like, oh, like, you know, don't want to reach out, because then that's the whole coach thing, like you said, because most people do, and they think they're going to get like sold into something. But I'm here doing what I've been guided to do. If I take advantage of that, I'm not going to be guided anymore. I'm not going to be authentic, and I'm not going to be presented with, you know, everything that's meant to come for me, to me from the universe. So I can't do anything I don't feel aligned with now. And I take that really, really seriously, like just being open, being honest, speaking my truth. And by doing that, it's how you attract the people that are meant for you in your life. You know what I mean? And that's a lesson in everything. You know what I mean? It's why, like, again, going back to your very first question you asked me, like, how are you? If you even aren't authentic with that, how do you ever know? How will you ever be helped with where you're at? If you're actually really struggling right now and someone asks you, how are you? And you say, oh yeah, I'm fine, man. Like, and they're okay. But if you actually say, oh man, you know what? I'm actually struggling with this right now. Like, you know, like I don't want to put this on you or whatever, but like, yeah, to be honest, I'm really not doing that great. And then that'll spark a conversation. And what you'll find is if that person has more than likely probably been through something similar, that'll start a conversation, and it will lead to what you need to know to help you out of it. You know what I mean? But if you just go, yeah, no, I'm good, you're cutting off any possibility. You know what I mean? And then we do that in life in general. You got to be open to what's presented to you. And the only way you're ever going to attract true and authentic connections and relationships in your life is if you be true and authentic and speak your truth all the time. Like, hey.
Yes. I'm a big believer in vulnerability breeds vulnerability, man. And
yes.
if we can be authentic, if we can be vulnerable in what's going on in our lives,
yeah.
You know, if you were to come on here today and be like, fuck, I'm going through some shit now, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's work through this. Let's have a conversation about it.
Yep.
But if you just said, yeah, sweet, whatever, you know, this podcast would be totally different. It's just by turning up, being vulnerable, allows that other person to be vulnerable, and then you can actually work through the shit that you may be going through.
Yep.
But you're never going to be able to do that unless you actually open up. And that's a big thing that I push is vulnerability breeds vulnerability. And
it is hard, bro. Like, even honestly, like I felt resistance just talking about my story then. Like, and it came up a few times, and I'm like, shit, like stop going there, doing this. Like, all those thoughts were coming up. They never go away, man. That's the thing. It's uncomfortable. You got to embrace the uncomfortability to build the confidence to then work through it, and then be able to create the connections that are going to help you through it. You know what I mean? Like, it is uncomfortable to talk about your shit. You don't want to be vulnerable, and because you don't want to be felt like, you know, it's weak or whatever. Like, it's just, that's what builds the strength. By doing it, being able to talk about that shit, man, it brings up the emotion and the shit you need to work through to actually get through it. And then the growth comes on the other side of that. Then new awareness comes from it, because like the reason you can't see through the shit you're in right now, if you're in a situation you're not happy with, is because you haven't allowed yourself to sit through it to see what's on the other side. Shit's thick, bro. Like, you know what I mean? You can't see through it. It doesn't work like that. It's a whole like tipping point analogy. Like I sort of uncovered this a little bit in a podcast not long ago, just quickly, like we always quit at the tipping point. But the problem is the tipping point is the most uncomfortable point. But we don't know it's the tipping point because we can't see that it's right there. The other side's right there because it's so thick and clouded, the limiting beliefs and the shit, and all we're feeling is the discomfort, and we're focusing on what's hard right now. But trusting in it, like I said, gives you that little bit of strength to just sit through it that little bit longer. And then by doing that, then you're presented with the ease that comes through after it. And then, oh shit, tipping point's right there. I didn't even know. You know what I mean? Have you seen that little analogy? It's like a cartoon on Instagram. It's popped up heaps. There's a guy digging on top of each other, and they're digging for diamonds. And one of them, and he's like, he gives up. He just needed to do one more hit and walks away. And then you see the other one come along, and then they end up finding it after being persistent with it. And it's just like, it's so cool. It's just like, you just had to be persistent that little bit longer. And it's always a lot closer than what you think.
Just turning up every...
That's what it is. That's what it is, yeah.
Dude, I want to circle back because I want to... Oh, first of all, I want to say I appreciate you sharing a bit about your story and diving into that, because I know how hard it can be.
I appreciate that.
I wanted to touch on, you just mentioned traumas, and it's hard to express them, but they're always going to be with us. And the analogy that I like to use is traumas are like a scar. They once used to be a fresh wound.
Yes.
Now they've healed up to be a scar. Yet so many of us are trying to forget our past, forget our traumas. Always going to be with us. They have stories, they're experiences that made you into who you are today. We need to learn to embrace them. Doesn't mean we're going to think about them every single day, but just embracing that, hey, this is who I am.
They shaped you.
Yeah, they shaped you into who you are today. So just embrace it, man. And I wanted to ask, when it came to you being a dad and that period in your life where you were into drugs and alcohol and that party scene, how did that impact your relationship with your son?
Massively, bro. And I went to go start telling you this before the podcast, and it's still a confronting thing for me to talk about. To be honest, bro, I barely remember the first 3 years of my son's life. And it's hard to put that out there. But it's something I've had to face, and it's where I was at the time, and it's the awareness that I had at the time. And I can't judge and criticize myself for it because it's what I did, and it's where I was at, and the things I was doing is just what I was doing. I was disconnected from myself. I was taking drugs when, it's hard to say that, when I had my son in my care, and it was I was so convinced I was still capable. Like I said, the mindset, bro, was everything. I had a toxic relationship with my mindset because I was so convinced it would get me through everything. Again, like I said, it would be okay with everything. That's what happened, bro. I wouldn't admit at the time that I had a drug addiction because I was like, I only do it on weekends. It's not an addiction. I'm like, yeah, but every week, Thursday again, an itch, Friday, fucking ready, and then you're on it. And then you're on it all weekend. And it was and then I went through the phases, bro. I was like, I'll only do it every second weekend when I'd have my son. That lasted not very long at all because I was addicted and couldn't admit it. I was like, I'm at home, my son's safe. Who cares if I'm doing it? And I would convince myself it was okay. You know what I mean? I'd have friends, a couple of friends there too. And, it was we thought it was it's so uncomfortable talking about this, hey, I have to be honest. But we would think, there was more of us. So it was a safe environment. We could, I was always aware. I was never one to kind of pass out drinking or partying or anything. I always liked to believe I was aware as I could be. That was deluding myself at the time because you can only be so conscious when you're doing things that make you in an unconscious state, I'm clouding everything I'm doing. But yeah, it was shit, bro. I convinced myself it was okay. I made it a truth and a belief that I can look after my son when I'm intoxicated. And I believed that. And so I made it work. And I got away with it for 3 years without him getting harmed. Like, thank God, thank universe, whatever. And I really do. And it's one thing I reflect on. And again, it's shit like that that's hard to not regret. But I can't, the thing is, by having regret, you're not accepting it for what it was. And again, it's what shaped me to who I am. Everything I've been through in my life has made me who I am now. If I reject any of that, it means I reject myself. You know what I mean? And then again, that's going against yourself, going against a relationship with yourself. So I had to eventually take it seriously and be like, I can't do this. This is not right. Had to face that. It was a big thing to have to face that. And then it was one of the big things that then, started getting me away from it. And it's like, and it's something that I still know I haven't probably completely faced properly. It's still something that sits there. And when I think about it, I'm like, I'm a bit ashamed of it. I'm very ashamed of it, to be honest. Haven't probably admitted or faced that properly yet. And I guess I do get concerned, even though my son was so young, there's still concerns that, like, you know, he has some sense of knowing in him that it might come out later in life, you know, even though he was only up to 3 years old. It's still something that, I'll have to admit, I'm ashamed of the behavior I had at that point. But I forgive myself for it, because I know by having resentment towards myself, like I said, is going against myself, and that's not loving yourself completely for who you are. And that affects everything.
Definitely.
Everything.
Why do you feel you haven't faced it? You mentioned shame.
It's definitely the shame factor. It is, because it's not a nice feeling. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I still have my mind, like in my mind, nothing ever happened to him or anything like that. So I'm like, so it worked out basically. But I still know I've never allowed myself to feel that shame properly. And I know I will. I'm doing a lot of deeper work now with myself. Like, I have a spiritual counselor, he's amazing. A spiritual healer I see as well. I've got, different mentors and things like that. And I'm very, very open and vulnerable with all of them. Matt Gamble, my best mate, who I do the Mastered Mindset with, he's got his own stuff going on now, which is going amazing. It's so nice to see what he's doing with his Matt Gamble podcast and stuff like that. I encourage people to jump on and have a listen, because he's just, he's just hitting all new levels and going into deeper depths with what he's doing at the moment. And I'm grateful to have a best friend like that we can hold each other so accountable and be so open with each other. I'm stepping into that even more now, because now I'm like, I know how much comes out of that. Like I said, facing our shit, facing our shadows, man, it's like, it's the most like horrible thing to face and shittest feeling. And it's like, it's gross, it's yuck. And it's like, it's so confronting. But man, I know you've got to be face to face with that shit if you really want to discover your true self. You will never know your true self if you can't face your deepest, darkest shadows. And just by doing the act itself of facing it is what's going to give you the clarity on the other side of it that you're seeking in your life right now.
You're dropping so many gems. I want to ask, in the beginning of you sharing your story, you mentioned about the physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
What is your relationship with anger? Because I know a lot of men struggle with that, and then men that have been physically abused, they either turn that externally or they go internally with that. So what's your personal relationship with anger? It
was more, I don't think I've ever been a real angry person. I'm definitely, like I always said, like I'm a lover, not a hater, like in any way. Never been physically abusive. I mean, I was around very, very, pretty bad group of people when I was young, like my early teens. So that teenage years, that group I was talking about earlier, I was hanging around, man, they were into some pretty messed up shit, like fights all the time. I was watching brawls with knives and fucking everything. I used to see people getting very fucking hurt, man, like all the time. I was very confronted with all that from very young. There was people in that group that used to shoot up heroin. I didn't even know I was 13, 14, man. So I didn't even really touch on that as another part of my story that I've experienced. But like seeing all of that, I've never had a bone in like what's the word? Like a harmful, I don't know what the word, I'm totally mind blank now, but anyway, I've never had a hurtful sort of like energy within me. I've never been able to hurt a soul, like basically, and don't have an abusive bone in my body, basically is what I'm trying to say. So, and I used to be right in this shit, bro. Like I've situations I was in when I was at like 13, 14, where I'm in the middle and it was like a war zone, people getting stabbed and bashed and all around me, and I'm invisible.
Where'd you grow up?
In Glenmore Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Glenmore Park.
Was it that bad?
It was that bad. Like I'm 37, so like going back, this is when Glenmore Park High first opened. I was there the first year it opened, so it was around that time. And it was chaos there, bro. Glenmore Park was a nightmare. It was like turned in one of the worst schools so quickly, and like it was absolute chaos there. And I was in this shit, bro, all the time. And I used to feel like I thought I was invisible. Just I was waiting to get hurt, and I'm like, no one ever touched me. It was like I swear, and I put it down to being protected by the universe. I didn't have threatening energy about me, so I feel like people felt that, and it made me invisible. Swear to God, because there's no way this was happening multiple nights a week, on weekends, all the time. These people, all these guys are into some pretty bad shit, and like I don't know how I was never hurt or harmed, bro. Like it's crazy to think back to it, some of the shit I was around. And like so, when you say that with anger, I've always been loving. Like I'm a very affectionate person too. Like going into like love languages and all that shit. Like my main love language is physical touch and like and affection and all that. So I've always been very, very affectionate. I've always had that loving nature about me, and I swear that's what's protected me through my life. And it's what allowed me to be able to disconnect from my body when I was young, getting abused by parents. It was what allowed me to be invisible around these groups. It was what allowed me to not get emotionally hurt through relationship stuff, like all of that. But it all came, like I was closed off. You know what I mean? It was like a closed off sense, and that it was unknowing. I didn't know how to feel. And like, but it kind of just, I don't know. So I can't say I was ever angry. Like I don't ever remember being really angry at all in my life. I had moments where I'd get stressed and annoyed and stuff like that, and I might lash out a little bit here and there, but it was always very controlled and contained. I felt a lot of it in me at one point when I was probably going through my bad partying phase. Used to feel a lot of suppressed anger kind of come up, but I'll just contain it because I didn't like expressing it, and I didn't want people to kind of see me like that, because I knew that wasn't me, and it was coming from something else. But that was something that ended up clearing out of me, I think, once I went through, deeper into my personal development journey and came out with then, and the self-love and all of that ended up kind of cleaning that out of me. So hope that answers the question.
I find it interesting, and I love to ask this question because everyone has a different perspective, as I mentioned before. And a lot of people that have gone through similar situations that you've had will turn that anger externally and just become the same person.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
What's happened in their environment. And for me, growing up, I internalized anger, and I seen anger as a bad thing.
Yeah.
So for me, now I'm learning to have a relationship with anger and understanding that beneath that anger, there's actually sadness.
Yeah.
But we use that anger as a defense mechanism instead of actually dealing with the actual emotion that's under.
That's right, because we don't want to be vulnerable.
That's why men struggle with anger.
Yeah.
And we lash out. And we see it all the time, all over the news, wherever the case may be, and it's toxic masculinity. No, it's just men that don't know how to deal with their emotions.
Exactly right. 100%.
Yeah. It's so important that by us having this conversation, I mentioned before, vulnerability breeds vulnerability. If men are listening to this and they go, wow, if Nick and Aaron can have this conversation about, his upbringing, what he's been through, and, he didn't turn into, I guess, his attacker or the people in his environment.
Yeah.
He turned out totally different. Why can't I?
Exactly right, yeah.
I don't have to play victim mentality, or I don't have to blame my past for who I am. And it all comes back to life happens for you,
exactly,
not to you.
Exactly, and not dropping into that victim. Like you probably heard that little story about like the two brothers who they both, one's a successful business person, one's like a abusive alcoholic, and they both get asked the same question, like, why did you turn out the way you turned out? And they go, because my father was an abusive alcoholic. And they're like, one went one way, one fell into victim mode and used that as his excuse to fall into the same shit. You know what I mean? It's your choice, end of the day. It really is. Like, what do you want your life to be? What do you want your life to look like? We're creators of our own reality. Literally, it comes back to that all the time, and just trust, having the belief, bro. The belief is everything. Whatever we have power, give power to, has power. Like, that's what it is. And if we can have these deep beliefs in our truths, you know what I mean, in what we want to represent as who we are, you know, in a positive way, that'll become our truth, and that will then reflect and be created into our reality. Like, it's just how it works, like, you know what I mean? And just by trusting and following it, man, you have to do it. Like I said, man, I've made really good money my whole life. Like, always was attached to that as being me. We get attached to these identities in our life that we're this person because of our job, or because of we're this person's partner, or we're this person's son, or we're this, you know, we're our name. We're not any of that. We're just a being, man. Like, we're just here as a physical being. Like, we're space. So I like to look at myself as space for life to unfold. And I just like to follow whatever is being presented to me, because I'm open space. I'm not attached to anything. Like, and it's, man, when you have this awakening to that, it's just, shit just becomes simple, man, you know, and start trusting in it. Like, I left my business, man, 12 months ago on the 2nd of February, like literally a few days ago, I got out of my business, and I was like, because I just felt the universe being like, you're not meant to be here anymore. Can't you feel how strong this passion is with helping people and doing what you're doing? Can't you see why I put you through this fucking life journey of like ups and downs and shit, and kept you alive at fucking points, and, you know, got you through the worst of shit, because now you're meant to be here to guide other people through it. Can't you see that? And I'm like hearing this, bro, but like through feeling. And then I'm like, all the shit came through, like, how am I going to make money doing this? Or like, you know, how do I even be a full-time coach? Or, you know, I had my podcast already. I'm like, how am I going to make that a career? Like, you know, and all those limiting beliefs came through. I didn't buy into it. Now, I mean, that's the problem. We buy into the limiting thoughts, not the positive, you know, abundant thoughts. Like, and so I was just like, okay, I'm doing it. And again, I was like, I made the decision. Didn't even have to advertise my business. Spoke to my accountant, just told him I'm going to sell the business. He goes, oh man, I've got someone who'll buy it straight away. And I was like, oh, fuck, all right. Okay, there you go. And then literally it got sold, bang, done. Man, I had a business with like 9 employees. I had a warehouse, all this stuff, and all these, like, you know, ends that had to be tidied up and all this. This guy come through, he was just like, I want the business, bang, I want to keep all the employees. You literally train this guy to do what you do, the quoting and stuff. Training for 2 months, you walk out, we walk in. And I was like, what the fuck, yeah, man. I'm just thinking like, okay, sweet, universe again threw that ball of light at me, and like, there you go, you made the decision, now let's go. Started, had all this intuition come through. Back then I was really into mental toughness and stuff. I did that 75 hard challenge and all that, which, by the way, I don't really resonate with now, because I know like mental toughness isn't maintainable long term. But again, we could go into a whole nother fucking rant about that. But I came up with this program, came to me straight away, because it was just what I was doing. So they say the way you can help, and how is it? The best teacher is somebody who's been through it themselves. So teaching people what you've been through yourself, right? What I was going through at that time was all this high discipline stuff, whatever, all built around mindset, all of that. Literally just sat with it. What can I teach people this? Just get them to do what I'm doing right now. I feel fucking amazing. So let's just get them doing my morning routine, my daily practices, my night routine, because look how I feel. Bang. Didn't have to think about it, because that's just what I was doing. And then I put that out there. This is what I'm doing. I don't know who I'm trying to attract here, but like, if anyone resonates with this, fucking reach out. I'll fucking help you change your life. Like, because I've changed my life. And I had all these people reach out to me. I signed up like 10 clients in like 3 days. And it was like, holy fuck, I had like 6 months worth of clients like locked in. And I was like, bang, like, there's the abundance come through. I didn't even think about the money. I was just like, came to me. And then at the end of these calls, I'm like, oh, it costs this much, by the way. And I'm like, you know, and they're like, oh, fuck, man, I didn't even care. Like, fucking, they could feel it in the conversation. We had this deep conversation of connection. And then they're like, sweet, let's go. And man, and the transformations in people are like, I can't even put words to it. Like, just insane. And then that just developed from there. As I changed, I had to allow change to happen as well around me. And I have changed heaps since then. My growth's been like crazy. gone deeper. It's gotten more slow. Like I've slowed right down, realized that it's, like I said, all now the focus is on self-love because I've just realized how much that is, like how important that is. And nobody makes time for it. You know what I mean? And just slowing people down and getting them into routines and just doing all the things I'm doing. And they're starting to get those feelings of just knowingness that, okay, this is where I'm meant to be. I don't need to figure shit out anymore. I'm just trusting and I'm being guided towards where I'm meant to go now. And I just know it without words.
That's it.
That's it.
It doesn't take like, you can do it in 10, 20 minutes in a day.
Bro, it doesn't take.
It's just about disconnecting to reconnect
Exactly.
with yourself. We get so caught up in a society, as we've mentioned throughout this whole podcast. And I love that throughout your story and to where you were to where you are now, the purpose is in the pain.
It really is, man.
And people don't realize that. All the shit that we go through happens for a fucking reason.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to tap into that and understand, like, wow, I've been through this. I don't want other people to go through that. This is my purpose now. We get so caught up in trying to find our purpose and looking out there into the universe. Like, yeah, external things can help you, but it all comes back to yourself. This whole podcast is all about yourself, the relationship with yourself, getting to know yourself.
Yeah.
So important. And I'm going to keep saying
it is. It's the most important thing you can ever do, because how are you ever going to know what's meant for you if you don't even know who you are? You know what I mean? Like, realistically, like I said before, it's a confronting thing. Like, you can't build a relationship with someone if you don't spend time with them. And your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you can ever have. You know what I mean? These spiritual teachers, bro, this thing, like, it's so, like, confronting. He puts his hands on his face, like, do it with me, like, hands on your face, right? And it feels like weird. It'd be like, and you say to yourself, I am the love of my life. Like, I am the love of my life. And I'm like, I am here for me. Like, I've got you. And talking to yourself like that with your hands, getting physical with yourself, like, that's going within yourself. I hug myself, bro, my morning routine. I'm like, I get real physical. I hug myself while I'm meditating and like shine love. And I visualize love energy coming out of my hands and going back into me. You know what I mean? And I know there'll be people who'll be like, listening to me like, freaking that's weird, funny. Whatever. Yeah. But it's like, this is how you do it, man.
I told my mum today, I'm like, why don't you hug yourself? She goes, yeah, it's fucking weird.
Yeah, like, I didn't realize that. Most people will find it so confronting to look themselves in the mirror and say, I love you. How can you not tell yourself you love yourself? Like, it's so crazy how much of an awkward thing that is for people. That in itself just shows you where you're at with your relationship with yourself. And if the more uncomfortable you feel with that, that's even the more reason and the stronger, like, you know, the even more reason that you should be building that relationship with yourself. Like, that's your like radar of where you're at. So like, the more uncomfortable you are, the like, you really should be going more within yourself.
And it's said time, and if you don't truly love yourself, how do you expect to truly love people and turn up as your best self?
Exactly, you can't.
It's not selfish to work on yourself, to spend time with yourself, because that allows you to be a better version of yourself for everyone and the people that you love. And,
yes.
You know, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly right. I love that analogy. Yeah. It's so true, man. And that's what it is. It's like, you know, like I said, you can't give what you don't have for yourself. It just literally comes out of that. You can't. So if you don't love yourself, you can't love others. You really can't. You might think you can, like, and it might feel like you are, but unless you feel fulfilled in life, then you're not at that capacity. You don't have the love for you and you don't have the love for others that you think you do, because otherwise you would feel fulfilled. Yeah, you still get challenged and tested and all of that, but like I said, there's this underlying knowing that you're where you're meant to be through all of that. When you have that love, that's what gets developed through building a relationship with yourself.
Are you fulfilled?
I'm very fulfilled. Yes, I am. I know I'm still haven't touched the surface of like what I'm meant to be doing, but I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Like I said, I feel very fulfilled and content and at peace. Peace is the radar. Peace is how at peace you feel in your life is basically the dial, I guess, of where you're at. So the more like the more out of peace, like it's hard to explain because this stuff's so hard to get into words, but like
It's just
it's an inner feeling. The less at peace you feel in life, like it's like it's so hard to explain. I really can't put words on. And this is what I mean. People who understand is they get this because it's so far beyond what you can explain. It's like, it's just peace. Most people don't know what peace feels like.
kind of like an out of body experience.
It's almost like I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just this knowing of just I'm right where I'm meant to be. That's all I could just come back to that. And it's like, so I feel fulfilled with where I'm at right now because I know I'm aligned with where I'm meant to be, and where I'm meant to be is right here. But I'm on this consistent path of moving from present moment to present moment. So I'll just keep bringing myself back to the present moment when I get caught in thought, as everybody does. No matter how aware you are of this, you're always going to still get caught in thought. Come back to this moment. Remind yourself this moment is beautiful. This moment is right where I'm meant to be. And just by sitting here, I'll continue to be guided to the next moment that's meant for me as well. And like, that's it.
Who is Aaron Zarb in this moment right now?
In this moment right now, I am open space. I am here as a space to experience whatever is being presented to me in life. And that's just me. And I'm here, I feel like I'm here as a guide. I'm here to share my message for whoever needs to hear it. And I have no attachment to anything outside of myself at all. Like, not even me. So I'm just here as a present being, speaking my truth and completely open to just whatever is meant for me in life. That's probably the best way I could put it. I don't know. Yeah.
Bro, we have a closing tradition on the podcast where a previous guest leaves a question for the next guest.
Oh, I like that.
So the question for you today is, Aaron, if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 7-year-old self?
7-year-old self. Ooh, that's a big one. First thing coming through is don't close off to your emotions, no matter how hard it might be, and just sit through it and feel everything for what it is, no matter how tough and challenging that is, because that's where the answers lie. And that's how you're going to not lose the connection with who you really are. That's it.
Bro, where can the people find you and everything that you're doing? Because just from this conversation, we could go all night.
Yeah.
And I know you post a lot on social media and you share so much more wisdom there. I want people to follow you and see all the work that you're doing. So where's the best place?
Appreciate that. So, all right. Well, first of all, we've got the podcast, which is the Mastered Mindset podcast. So you can look that up on any podcast platform. I post all the links to that on the Instagram page every week. I literally just a few days ago, and I've done this twice now. I mentioned just really slightly before about not attaching to identity. I realized I got caught as like, I'm the Mastered Mindset guy, because people go, oh, you're the Mastered Mindset guy, or that. And so I was attaching to that a little bit without realizing. And I'm like, that's not who I am. I'm just me, myself, and I just have a name, Aaron Zarb. So I just literally changed it again. I did this a few months ago and then ended up going back because I bought back into the fact that people know me as Mastered Mindset. So I've just recently changed my name of the Mastered Mindset Instagram page to just _Aaron Zarb _. And that's it, because I'm like, that's a projection of me, that page. I share my truths. I share the messages that come through for me now. Like I said, I don't do scheduled posts or anything anymore. I wait for the inspiration to come through from the universe, because I feel that when something comes through strong enough and I need to share it, that's because somebody needs to hear it. And that's when I'll post now. So I don't force any posts or try to think of what to post anymore. And so I'm doing nowhere near as many posts as I used to, but when they're coming out, man, I'm like, the engagement from them is like this crazy, like different to what it used to be. So that's what it is. Just me projecting my truth on there. So the Instagram page, I love my Instagram. Like, I really love it so much because I feel like it is my connection to people, and I'm all about new connections. Like, it's what I love this space so much about. Again, this new connection with you, I'm so grateful for it, man.
Wouldn't have happened through.
Exactly right. So I love it if people could connect with me on Instagram at _ Aaron Zarb _ and that's AARONZARB. So connect on there, and then I've got a link tree to the podcast and everything through there anyway.
I'll drop the links in the
I
description.
appreciate it. Awesome, yeah.
But yeah, Aaron, thank you so much. Like, this has been a very interesting conversation and a lot for me to process and soak in. You've probably seen the times I was just trying
That's cool.
to process it all. But that's what I love about podcasting, and getting to speak to all different people and learn
It's so good,
new
man.
things. And I just want to say deeply, like, thank you so much. Like, coming here after work, 8 o'clock at night. It's now 10 o'clock now.
Oh, wow.
This has been a 2-hour
Oh,
podcast.
wow. Shit.
So deeply thank you so much. I'm super grateful for you taking the time out to have this conversation. I know it's going to impact a lot of people. So
Appreciate that, man. Well, I want to project that straight back to you, bro, because like I said, this is all about that energy transfer, and that's why we lost track of time there, is time becomes an illusion in the present.
the best
It
conversation.
really is, bro. Yeah, there's no time in the present because it's just the present, and we were so immersed in that, and I'm surprised by that. I did not even realize it was that long, and man, I'm so grateful for you. Like, inviting me into your space. Like, our own space and our energy is a precious thing, and I take that pretty seriously when I get invited into somebody else's space like that. And man, I feel so much love and beautiful energy from you. Love what you're doing, and I know this is going to be the start of a new relationship and connection in itself. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you more, brother.
Appreciate it, bro.
Thank you, man.
Let's go.